Fantastic. So, hi everyone. I'm Michelle Rosen, senior faculty. You've seen me before, yesterday and today. This is a talk about college auditions, helping your students with them. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm not an admissions person, but I have a lot of experience getting my students into their colleges of their choice. I teach at NYU Tisch in the musical theater program there, which is highly competitive. I taught for 7 years at Rider University in their musical theater program. And at the Brooklyn Youth Chorus, where I taught for 15 years, I also hosted a panel, or co-hosted a panel that we would hold for high school juniors and their families every spring to help them start to think about how to navigate the college auditioning process and how to think about what schools to look for. And I've also interviewed a bunch of people, which will be, some of that will be in your handouts. So some of this is just my experience. Some of it is from deep Google dives. And then it's a long PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you now, and I'm going to fly through some of it. But just know that this session is being recorded. I'm also going to share my slideshow with you all, whoever wants it, and there are also handouts that go along with it. So don't worry if it goes by pretty quickly, because I'd like to get to a discussion at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. And there we go. So that's the title card, admit. And I'm going to look off to my left because I have a second screen going here that has my notes. Admit. So those are some of the genres that people can audition for college in. And then here are our main topics. Choosing a school, that's one section, and auditioning is a second section. I'm going to go a lot more deeply into both of those. Choosing a school. So,
Michelle?
yes?
I'm co-host right now too, so you don't need to worry about admitting.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to go into each one of these bullet points further in the slideshow, but these are the categories for choosing a school: assess competitive level, what their goals are, finances, college life, and then liberal arts versus conservatory. So the first thing you want to do as audition season approaches is assess their level and try to be honest with both yourself and the student in, of course, a very kind and compassionate way, understanding that the audition process is highly competitive. That doesn't mean that they won't get there at some point, but you want to let them know where they are right now, because the bulk of the schools that they choose should be within a range where the student can probably pretty easily get accepted. And then you want to look at 1 or 2 reach schools, their dream schools, and 1 or 2 safety schools. Everyone's interested in lists, best of lists, don't sing lists. I have all of that, but just know that just because it's a top school doesn't mean that it's right for your particular student or your particular child. There's a lot of considerations. Okay. Training goals. So first, what genre? And that can be tricky. If you have a student, I've had many students who sing a little bit of classical, a little bit of musical theater, they dabble in pop, and all of a sudden they're 17 and they're asked to choose a highway, choose a lane. And not all of them want to and are ready to. So you might have to research what schools will allow them to sing a lot of different genres. And that's probably not going to be conservatories, which really focus on elite training for very particular and specific levels. Often, if they're interested in music education, often those programs have very diverse genres. So are they wanting to double major or minor, major, minor? And you have to check out whether the school is strong in the second major as well. Do they want a teaching certificate, or are they interested in music ed? And are they more practical, performance-oriented, or more theoretical? In other words, are they wanting to work right out of school in their field, or are they planning to go to grad school and be more academic? Okay, family finances. I recommend that you have a talk with the family if you have that kind of relationship. And sometimes you may not, and that's fine. If they ask you your opinion, you can give them some information, but they need to, for themselves, know how much do you have budgeted? How much have you saved up? And you have to also take into consideration the budget for applications, for auditions, for school visits, probably not a lot of which are happening this particular year, but in other years, those costs can add up. So the application process alone can be surprisingly costly. You may want to take that into consideration when considering how many schools to apply for, because students nowadays apply for many, many, many more schools than when I was in school. 11 to 19 colleges is typical. And then merit and talent scholarships and financial aid. So you want to look everywhere, literally everywhere. If you're Greek, look to your local Greek organization. Look to your church organization. Look to your parents, or you being the parents, or the students' parents, fraternity, sorority connections, Knights of Columbus, military family, all of that, all of those groups offer scholarships and many more. Look everywhere. Okay, so here is a sobering statistic to consider when thinking about how much debt you want to take on. This is from the National Center for Education Statistics. 60% of new full-time undergraduate students complete their degree within 6 years. 6 years, not 4 years. And that's only 60%, meaning the other 40% take longer than 6 years or never finish. And they will have that same debt load. And I know from personal experience, because I have co-signed my stepson's, several of his college loans, that it's very hard to get forgiveness or any kind of loan consolidation for these college loans when they don't actually have the degree in their hand. It could be 4 credits short, but you don't have access to some of that. Okay, so college life. There are so many things to consider. Do they want a sorority fraternity kind of atmosphere? Do they like dorm or apartment? Size of school. There are advantages and disadvantages to each. Large schools can have a lot more going on, a lot more resources. If they're high-level schools, they have a lot more connections, but it's also a very competitive environment. So your student may become anonymous there. If it's also a big university where they have a big grad program, a lot of the casting is going to go to the grad students, and the undergrads get short shrift. Of course, you can make your own community in a large school. So even though it may be big and you can feel like a fish at sea, you can create community with your people in your residence, people in your fraternity, people in your major, so you won't be so adrift. In a small school, you may have a higher teacher-to-student ratio, but again, you may not get so much connections, but you'll have more personal attention. And similar, do they want a competitive environment or nurturing? And sometimes that's more for the parents to know than the student themselves. Urban or rural, that's obvious. And do they want to stay local? Do they want a particular region? Do they want to go abroad? I recommend spreadsheets galore for figuring all this out. So again, liberal arts versus conservatory. Again, liberal arts is elite. Conservatory is elite training. It's highly, highly competitive, and it's very, very rigorous training with minimal academics. Whereas liberal arts, you can still get good training depending on the school, but there's a more well-rounded approach. There's also a middle ground called the School of Music within a college or university, like Oberlin, like Ithaca has a School of Music, Crane School of Music, where Renee Fleming went. That's part of State University system in New York, Potsdam. And then you want to audition for a program where that matches their strengths. So if they're a dance person who does musical theater, you want to look for a dance-oriented program, or one that is administered, a musical theater program that's administered out of the dance department. Same thing with acting. Singing, you might want a more music-based program. And some of those give Bachelor of Music degrees. Some of them give BFAs. The acting programs will give BFAs, and usually the dance programs as well. Okay, so that's that. We are going on to auditioning, and if anybody doesn't recognize the iconic picture from A Chorus Line, I can't help you. Just kidding. So, are they vocal performance, musical theater, jazz, or CCM? Yeah, so everything this year may be done online, but pre-screening, although a lot of people don't like it, making pre-screening videos can save a lot of money, can save you on wear and tear of travel, and are very doable at home. You don't need fancy equipment. You don't need to go to a recording studio. Just have decent lighting. Just have play around with the mic placement so that the sound is optimal, and dress nicely. Have a great pianist and a fairly neutral background. For all of these categories, be building your resume. Sometimes parents like to help with that. They've saved every program that from everything you've ever done. That's wonderful. Let them put that together. And also something to note is that, and for the students to know, that colleges are recruiting. They're actively recruiting. So sometimes we feel like we're just knocking on the door, hey, let me in, but really they're looking for people. So I think that could be empowering for the students to realize. Okay, so vocal performance is classical, and they usually want 3 to 5 selections, and this is often the breakdown: 1 English, 1 Italian, 1 German or French, and 1 of the singer's choice. The choices need to be contrasting, so that is the period, the style, the tempo, even the keys. You don't want to do 2 songs in the same key if they're back to back. Some colleges for undergrad request an aria, and some request don't sing an aria. So you have to be knowledgeable about what the requirements are for each school, and that's all on their websites. In musical theater, singing from the canon is good. So if you want to sing a Schubert song, well-known Schubert song, Wohin, or something like that, An die Musik, they love that. As opposed to musical theater, which is rife with all these do not sing lists. And I'll have more to say about that as we go along. So musical theater is usually 2 to 3 contrasting songs. Often it's 1 golden age musical theater. Billy had a nice discussion about what constitutes golden age in his discussion yesterday. For me, it's things that are pre-1970, pre-hair. Contemporary has a lot of definitions. But I think you're very safe going with shows that are post the year 2000. That's when the scales tipped and the predominance of shows on Broadway became contemporary sounding. Before that, you had some, but you still had a lot of revivals, and you still had a lot of shows that had more traditional sound. So that might be the contrast that they're looking for, or just 1 uptempo and 1 ballad. Sometimes they want to hear a pop song, And if you have on your resume that you sing with a band or you're a singer-songwriter, I would definitely recommend preparing at least one pop song. The cuts are between 16 and 32 bars long. I tell the students they need to have the full song, the 32-bar cut, and the 16-bar cut because each school has a different requirement. And then there's something called the wild card in your pre-screening, so that's up to a minute of anything special about you that you want them to know. Whether you play an instrument or you're a crackerjack at something, that's what the wild card is for, and it can be helpful getting into some of these schools. I'm sure a lot of you know about the Common App that is for applying to colleges, and now there is a Common App pre-screen for musical theater programs, and a lot of programs have signed on for that. And I have a list in my handouts which schools, so that could be very helpful. There are over 50 colleges now using it, and so you just have one set of requirements. Sometimes the contrast can be whether it's legit or it's mixed or it's belt. And I'm going to go on to jazz. So this is requirements that I took off the Frost School of Music at University of Miami. They want 2 traditional jazz or standard. And again, in jazz, they want you to know the canon. You should sing from the canon. So that would be 1 medium and 1 fast swing, and has to include at least 1 chorus of improv. And then they want 1 jazz or standard ballad and 1 singer's choice, so that's usually something CCM. And for jazz, you need to demonstrate your sight singing ability, oral memory, and your knowledge of theory. This is a picture of Esperanza Spalding. And a caveat about jazz training, vocal training for college. A lot of the schools don't pay much attention, I would say most of them, to the vocal training. They'll train you in the style of jazz and in riffing and improv, but the voice training is not functional. Sometimes you have classical singers teaching it. Sometimes they just don't pay any attention to it at all. So you might want to research where some of our somatic voice work people are teaching, because they're very knowledgeable in helping singers in this style. And just you want to research that. CCM, contemporary commercial music, a term that Jeannie actually coined. So this is not standardized because it's a very new major. So I took it off Millikan University's website, this one, but they're all going to be slightly different. 1 or 2 pieces, basic musical competencies, etc. And that's, of course, Prince. I know I'm going fast, and I apologize. Supplement. Oh, you can help some of your students get into a college with a music supplement, even if they're not majoring in music. This can really put them over the edge, and I just had a student of mine accepted into Yale doing a music supplement. So that's a pretty good school to help someone get into. It can help them have an edge for acceptance. It could help them get scholarships, and it usually includes a video or audio recording of 1 or 2 of their pieces. It's often classical, or maybe usually classical. And then you want to have a resume and documentation of their musical activities, such as programs and whatever else the school may request. Oops, overall advice. So instead of a do not sing list, this is the overall advice. Students should sing what they sing well for these college auditions. This is not the time to stretch or reach or try to impress somebody with your attempt to sing a really difficult song. Hilda Harris, a Metropolitan Opera singer, I was on that Brooklyn Youth Chorus panel with her, and she said, express, don't impress. I think that's great advice. For opera and musical theater, which are theatrical forms, you want to be able to tell the story through the song and be you in the situation of the scene. That's very important. And for jazz, CCM, You want to know the parameters of the style, but also be unique within those parameters. And if you only do legit, even though they want two contrasting things, just sing legit. If you don't belt, don't try to do a belt song just for contrast. There are other ways of contrasting, which I mentioned earlier. Do what sits really comfortably, and also pick a couple of songs that you can sing when you're not at your best, when you woke up with a cold or you're tired. Some songs that you can sing in less than optimal conditions. All right, lists. So we've got do not sing lists. We've got top musical theater, jazz, and CCM schools. And those are long lists, so I'm just going to give you, they'll be in the handouts, and they'll also be on this for you to review. We have auditioning and rep websites, and Kevin Michael Murphy is that the right name?
Kevin Michael Jones?
Kevin Michael Jones. Damn, it's Kevin Michael Jones. I know a Kevin Michael Murphy also from grad school. Darn, I thought I fixed that. He has repertoire resources. The first one is musical theater. The second one is pop songs. And there are lots of other. Billy, can you make a note to send to me about that?
Yes.
All right, so do not sing. Instead of giving you all the particular songs, these are the guidelines. Don't sing anything currently on Broadway. Why? Because they're going to hear that a gazillion times. Don't sing anything strongly associated with a particular artist. So you don't want to sing Over the Rainbow that's associated with Judy Garland, or you don't want to sing Maybe This Time that's associated with her daughter, Liza Minnelli, or People that's associated with Barbra Streisand. Things that are strongly associated with a very unique and well-known artist is probably best to avoid. And avoid Nina Simone versions of songs, because those are hers. Anything with a difficult piano part should be avoided unless you know the pianist at the place that you're auditioning, or it's for the pre-screen and you have your own pianist. But you don't want to get stuck with someone who's struggling with your music. That can only hurt you. Please don't sing anything, don't have your students, sing anything for mature people. Stay age appropriate. Doesn't have to be literal teenagers, but young, in the young category. So don't sing 50% or I'm Still Here or Send in the Clowns or Rose's Turn. Those are all for much more mature people. Also, you want to avoid anything that's overly emotional and overwrought. Yeah, I think it's obvious. And then anything with excessive profanity or excessive sexual innuendo, that's icky. And also anything from Phantom, Heathers, Hairspray, Wicked, Jekyll and Hyde, and Les Mis. People in academia don't want to hear that. I love it, but that's better for the student. Okay, I'm taking a sip of water. Do sing. Some of this we already said, pieces that are well within the technical, musical, and interpretive capacity of the student. Do sing pieces that are somewhat close to you, who you are, that you relate to, so that they can see you through the song. And yeah, I said all this. Good. Yay. I'm ahead of myself. Oh, about relating to the song. So here's an example. I love the song Landslide. And I was singing that. I was preparing it for something, little concert, benefit concert I was doing. And one of my students, who was leaving for college, said he wanted to work on that song. So I was like, okay. I thought it was strange. But he brought it in, and he sang it okay. And then I said, so Arif, I wanted to know why did you pick this song? Because in my mind, it's a song about an older woman, right? Children get over, and can I sail through the changes of my life? And he said, well, it's about, going off to college and all the changes in my life and saying goodbye to my family. And so in that case, he really, really related to the song, and he personalized it. And I loved hearing that, the way he interpreted it for himself. So Thought that was beautiful. Okay, top schools. That's Cassie Levy in Frozen. So Baldwin Wallace is right at the top. You know some of these schools: Carnegie Mellon, Ithaca, my school, NYU Tisch, Rider University, my former school. So you don't have to make a note of this. The slide will be available. And then what makes these top schools? Different websites use different metrics, so and algorithms, and those algorithms may or may not join with what the student actually needs. So you want to take those with a grain of salt, and yeah, they're subjective. They're just subjective. Most of the schools on this list are on more than one list that I looked at. Boston Conservatory, I just wanted to say that that's now affiliated with Berklee School of Music, the jazz school. Okay, so jazz, there's like 25 here or something, so we don't need to, where's jazz? Here. You don't have to read them all, but these are great schools. And then for CCM, I'm going to point you to a website. So this is for commercial voice degrees, diplomas, and other, there we go, other certificates. And this is a website of Jessica Baldwin, who's one of our graduates. And that's Katy Perry, by the way. So this is not at all standardized. So she just made a comprehensive list instead of a best as. Okay, and I have some online resources with the links that you can click on. A lot of these are in your handouts. College audition coach Maria Anna Denard. She is a paying service, but she also has a vlog, which can give some good information, and that doesn't cost anything. I just read The Ultimate Musical Theater College Audition Guide by Amy Rogers Schwartzreich. She's head of the BFA Musical Theater program at Pace University in New York. It was a very good book. Okay, and we're going to go further. Other resources, playbill.com. They have a playbill.edu.com. I'm not sure how updated it is. Majoring in music, there are websites for that. Before the College Audition, that's a book by Chelsea Deal. That's really wonderful. And Playbill has a list of the most schools most represented on Broadway. But yeah, there's a caveat with that too, because New York University, first of all, we have two different programs at two different colleges, and it's a humongous school. So yeah, we're at the top of that list. But that doesn't mean necessarily that we have the best training, although I think we do have wonderful training. And thank you very much for listening. This is the fastest I've gotten through this. So I'm going to stop the share. And I'd love to have people give me your questions. So let me, I guess, call on you. I can close that. But Randy, since you're up, so do you know how to do the raise hand feature, everyone? Okay, so Randy, you're there. So unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, I just have a student right now who's just been decimated by what's going on with COVID and everything shutting down. She had 2 shows canceled, and all of her summer training programs canceled, and she's still working with me, and she's working with another coach at one of our top performing arts magnet schools. But I know she's talking to a therapist. I know that she's disclosed that to me. But she's coming into her lessons no energy, no motivation, out of touch with her body. And so I do like yoga, body work, biometrics. Bioenergetics. And I do that with her. And I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be most concerned about right now, running the rep or keeping her voice flexible, because just where she is right now, it's really hard to, sometimes she doesn't have any sensation in her body until a half an hour in. And I know I need to talk to her parents, and I've sort of even said to her, I'm like, have you considered like maybe like having a couple of schools, because you like what we do and this seems to help you, some like music therapy stuff. I'm worried about talking to them, because I just don't want it to be like, maybe she shouldn't do this right now, even though maybe she shouldn't do it right now. But this has been the plan. She has a list of 20 schools. Up until 6 months ago, she did the intensive at Emerson. She got in as a sophomore.
Okay, so Randy, you need to have what they call a come to Jesus talk with her
Yeah.
and her family, because although she may be very talented and maybe in the past she's been at a place where she might get in, and you could say it's very understandable with what's going on. It's depressing, it's anxiety producing. We all are aware of that, but if you're serious about getting into a school, you've got to push past that and get on the ball, or consider taking a gap year. There is absolutely no shame in that. Take a gap year, wait till things come back online. I mean, not online, offline, and go back to being live. And meanwhile, she can be training with you. Since you do bioenergetics and other bodywork movement stuff, I would make her an exercise video to practice with, and she cannot log on to the lesson until she does that.
Okay.
I mean, literally, people are coming into these online lessons from their bed and from their couch.
That's I get about her, and what I've asked her about that, she's like, I don't know how else to have any other energy. It's just a bad.
She needs to run around the block, and she needs to do a set of exercises that you give her to energize her body, and then you can change it up in a month or so, but she needs to energize her body before she comes to the lesson. That's my personal opinion. I'm going to go to the next person.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Kim?
Hi there. So I just have a quick question. You think you mentioned something about supplementals, and I did not, that's a new term for me. I've not heard about that.
Some schools, you can, as part of your application package, you can offer a supplement. In our case, it would be a supplement in music and in singing, but they have art supplements, they have different supplements, just like you show that you've done community service, you're well-traveled, you write a good essay. This is just one portion of an application package that we, as voice teachers, can help our students have an edge.
And that would particularly be for people that don't want to be music majors but have been
Right.
musically involved, and it would be just a showcase of how well-rounded they are. Is that correct?
Exactly. And a lot of schools have very vigorous, that's not the word, but they have very lively music activities on campus, like Yale, that my student went to. They have like 23 different choruses, a cappella groups, I mean, and they plus choruses. So they're looking for singers.
So it would be maybe more advantageous at some college where there's a large non-major music scene where there's a lot of heavy involvement.
That might help, but it also, as you said, goes to show their well-roundedness. Yeah.
Michelle?
Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Michelle?
Jeff.
I think this is kind of what you're referring to, but it might be something just slightly related. I know of schools too that you don't have to be a music major, but you may get a $500 or $1,000 scholarship if you play in the marching band.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Got it. Thank you very much. That's helpful.
Okay, Connor.
Hi. So we have the do not sing list for college auditions and that. How can you go through finding repertoire that would be good for the college auditions that's not on that list or starting to creep onto that list?
I want everyone to take the do not sing lists with a humongous grain of salt. So I gave you the generalizations. Stick with that. Last year, we had Mary Michael Campbell as our musical theater expert in level 3. And I asked her the question, what do you think of do not sing lists? And she said, by the time a song makes it onto that list, it's so outdated from what we're hearing in New York. So I urge you to take all that with a grain of salt. If your student sings a song that you've seen on a couple of do not sing lists and they knock it out of the ballpark, by all means sing it. It is not beneficial, and everyone agrees on this, to have them sing something that is so obscure that the auditors are going, what song is that? Where is that from? I never heard that before. Gee, what a funny song. You don't want that. So you want to find a middle ground where it may be not overdone, but not completely obscure. You want to showcase the singer and the actor and what they can do within a particular song, and not show your great rep choosing skills. Is
Thank
that
you.
helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I mean, some people say don't sing anything in the musical theater anthologies. There are 7 anthologies for each voice category now, at least 6 or 7. That's crazy. That's like most of the rep. Okay.
Michelle,
Yeah.
you could also check in with Kevin Michael Jones because he's got
Yes, I
lots.
tried to say Kevin Michael Jones before, and I have his
Yeah.
website on the bibliography for
Good.
this.
Great.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Sorry. Okay, who else do I have? Alina?
Thank you so much, Michelle, for so much great information. I'm a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and my question to you, for example, if we are going like hybrid format, and what's going on with all this COVID-19? Because many students asking, which university should I, because of the current conditions where we are? Do you have any information on what's next year will look like for many of the schools you have on your list?
I don't. I barely know about my own school. I mean, well, they just told us that although New York University is going to be back in person, that the drama program, Tisch Drama, all of Tisch Drama will be remote. It's just a very high contact, high spit factor kind of training, and they just couldn't make it work in person, even with hybrid, even with rotating who's live in a classroom and who's not, and rotating people in and out. So, if I were a parent or I were a student, I would pick the school that is going to choose the most safe options and not the ones that are most loose, and just let everyone come back, and who cares? People get sick. All right, also, a gap year. I hate to say it because I'm afraid we're going to see like a lower enrollment in the freshmen, but taking a gap year and waiting till all this blows over and get more training, take more dance classes, take tap, brush up your acting chops, and work, make some money for your college education. So that's also an option. Thank you, Alina.
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Hi.
Hey there.
I have a question about your opinion on the role of typing in audition scenarios for BFAs. I know a lot of schools, like Shenandoah, for instance, like they want more individualistic. But for some other schools, do you think that that's a consideration when choosing monologues and cuts for BFA auditions?
Oh, can of worms. So I think that things are opening up more in terms of diversity in casting. And, for instance, the ingenues don't have to be like stick figures anymore in some circles. So if it's a more, forward-thinking progressive school like NYU, you might be okay with doing non-traditional casting. Certainly when it comes to ethnicity, definitely. But with body types, it's still an issue, and that's something that we have to keep fighting. Um, um, you know, in the olden days, they would say, not, I mean, and not so old, I'm talking about 2 or 3 years ago, they would say, you know, well, that shows that the student doesn't know their type. And, you know, I think that's ridiculous. That's what they're coming to college for. They don't have a type when they're 17. So I may think it's ridiculous, but if that's one of the criteria of a particular school, then the student might get into trouble if they're way out of their type. I think if you stick to young-ish, you know, teens, 20s, and songs that they can relate to, and whether they're 20 pounds overweight or if it's a song written for, you know, traditionally played by a Caucasian and an African American or a person of color is doing the song, I think that's fantastic. Caveat on the other way around, if it's a song that is written for a person of color, then Caucasian students should not be singing that at college auditions. Don't have your students sing your daddy's son. That's not going to go over. Okay?
Great, thank you.
Craig, did you want to say something? You don't have to raise your hand.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to
Say where
say
you teach.
what you just said about the BIPOC. I teach at Capilano University in Canada, on the west coast of Canada in Vancouver. And I would recommend, when you're doing your audition research, that you look at the casts of recent shows that schools have done, and that will give you a good idea of the type of people that they're accepting into their programs. If you find that all of the leads and all of the chorus members are tall, willowy blondes, then you know your short person is not going to fit in there. But if you notice that the cast is a complete range of body types and ethnicities, then your student is likely going to be very successful there. I don't know, Michelle, if you want to follow
Yep,
up with anything
I agree.
about that.
Yep, that's great. Great.
Okay, thanks.
Shane's iPod. Who's Shane's iPod?
Sorry about that. I have just a question about rep. So I've been a pianist for 35 years, working in all genres. And one of the things that I have noticed is that rep is a very regional activity. Like I'm out here in the West at UNLV, and I find that the teachers on the West Coast have a different set of rep, especially in the classical genres, than people who come from back east. I was wondering if you have experienced that throughout your travels.
That's interesting. I have to say honestly that I'm not aware of that. I have a very East Coast centric frame of reference because I was born here. I grew up on Broadway musicals, among other things, and now I teach at a New York university. So I'm not really aware of that, and I think that's very interesting. And I'd love to hear more about it.
It's just interesting because I would play songs over and over for specific teachers at the university, and then I would get a student who came from back east, and they had no idea what the song was. And so there seems to be this regionality of what singers particularly, or teachers particularly assigned, whether it's a comfort level or whether it's maybe not a knowledge of the complete rep. But it's just something I found very odd that I've noticed in many occasions.
And that's in classical vocal training?
Mostly in the art song, area, some in the arias. I don't see it too much in the musical theater area, but it's really strong in the art area.
Okay, thanks a lot for that information. I'm not aware.
I've noticed that a lot of classical teachers teach the songs that they were taught and basically nothing else. So that could be part of the problem there too, Shane.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to go to Joseph.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to ask your
There you
opinion.
Hi.
You hear me? Hi.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
I
good.
saw
Good
you
to meet
before.
you. I just wanted to get your opinion on um, gender bending songs. Do you think it could be successful, or does it really just depend on the school? Like at NYU, I think it would be different than the school I came from, Sam Houston State University. What?
I would say save those for cabaret. Save those, for a cabaret night. Save those for, I mean, you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. Should God, should the industry be more open-minded? Yes. And is it going in that direction? It is. So, um, but we're trying to achieve a goal of getting your student into college. And if they say, well, they don't even know that's a woman's song,
I see.
then however, for older music like of the Jerome Kern, Irving Berlin, Gershwin era, Rodgers and Hart, those songs were sung by a lot of different people, and I think
Yeah.
those are up for grabs in terms of
Understood.
gender. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about like current pop songs, like outside of the musical theater repertoire? Do you
Pop
think
songs,
those?
yes, definitely. I think it's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much.
Cassie?
Hey, I just want to throw a wrench in your system on the Gentleman's First because I actually got into BW's musical theater program based on singing a guy's song. Grant, it was What Kind of Fool Am I back in the day. However, I will agree to you that it has to be used carefully and you can't go in singing like a song that's specifically for male. But I think especially now in this generation, when the gender idea is getting more accomplished in the collegiate program, that I think, and I'm speaking mostly just for myself, that we can embrace a change of pronoun if a student really feels like they rock the song, it feels like they really connect to it. I don't, but in that realm, have you seen any experiences with that in the collegiate realm where there's more acceptance or people are starting to blend more rules for that reason?
Yes, I think that in the case of the song you mentioned, that's from Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. Yeah, but that song became a huge pop song. It became a hit. It crossed out of musical theater and just became a general radio song. So songs like that, songs that come from musical theater but that have become standards, those are also open for gender bending. I don't sit in on the auditions for Tish, so it's hard for me to say, but again, don't shoot yourself in the foot. You rocked that song, you sang it, and they probably applauded you for it. So, and you got into, what school did you get into?
Actually, BW. So I'm working with my alma
Oh,
mater, which I love.
yay. Okay, that's great. Is that okay? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I was curious about collegiate programs handling non-traditional gender students, if they're looking more towards the transgender community, gender nonconformist, like if what sort of movement there is in the collegiate realm to help embrace a community that is starting to embrace themselves.
Yes, well, I know that NYU is. Sometimes when they start rehearsals for a particular project, they go around and ask everyone's preferred pronouns. Um, I had a trans student with a very, a trans, I mean, oh my God, I don't even know how to talk about this. Born male with a very deep, low voice. And actually, he didn't want to identify as anything. He wanted to be gender fluid, and he used they. So they used they. So we are trying to embrace it, but one of the problems is that musical theater is very archetypal. So it's hard to get around some of that. It's moving in the right direction, and it's up to the younger generation, people like you and your students to push those boundaries. That's what I think. And let them become casting directors and let them become producers. And the more we get people in there, the more open it's going to be. Suani?
Yeah, Swanee.
Swanee.
Yeah, so I have a question. I was wondering what the biggest difference between an MFA and an MA is.
An MFA is a master's. Are you talking about a BFA or an MFA?
MFA.
So the F stands for, the FA stands for fine arts. So that's going to be more towards university training, more towards performance-oriented program, whereas an MA is just a Master of Arts, and it can tend to be more research-oriented, more theoretical, more history of drama or musical theater in that case. So the MFA is the performing-based program.
Okay, and would either of those matter if
when you walk into an audition room, it doesn't matter if you have a degree, you don't, for musical theater, it doesn't matter if you have a degree, you don't have a degree, if you came from Oshkosh, or you came from Yale, or you came from Carnegie Mellon, they don't care if you can deliver. And that's one thing about musical theater that is egalitarian. They don't care about where you went to school. They may look and see, and then they might, if they knew somebody at that school and say, oh, did you work with Joe Schmo there? Because, I went to school with him back in the day, But other than that, they don't care where your training was. So you get the best training that you can with the best experiences. Doesn't matter in musical theater.
And if you're looking to work as a teacher, does it matter as well with the two different degrees?
Oh, as a teacher, that's interesting. So maybe the more theoretical one would be better for you then, because you want more academics and you want more of the history and you want more of the theoreticals.
Okay.
Can I jump on that, Michelle?
Andrea.
Yeah, hi. I just graduated with my Master of Arts degree. The MFA that's as high as you can get in musical theater is the MFA. So if you have a choice between the two, get the MFA. The MA degree is going to be, like she said, a little bit more generalized, but you can still go up again and possibly get, a doctorate, or again, go back for an MFA. So if you're going to try to teach in academia, I would suggest the MFA over the other one.
Oh,
that's
okay.
a good point. Yeah, good point. Thank you,
Thank
Andrea.
you.
And Shane, back to you.
Yeah, I just had 2 points. The first one is that I have my master's degree, and what I have found is that if you're looking to teach in academia, I think those credentials are important, but I don't necessarily think that postgraduate work is necessarily important if you're not going to be teaching at the university or secondary level, because it just doesn't, I don't think, benefit. No one's ever asked me anything about having a doctorate, but I don't teach at the collegiate level. But the one thing that I really wanted to point out is one thing in your discussion at the beginning about when you're choosing which college to go for, you didn't mention anything about the salary expectations that people can have once they get out of a particular program. And that should be a defining feature of what they're going to choose to do, whether it be a performance degree strictly or whether it be a teaching degree. I went with individuals who were phenomenal singers in my master's program, and now they just can't, now they're working at the Apple store, or they're not able to make a living working in there. And so when you have got massive student debt, I think it's important to realize how much money you're going to actually make when you come out of there to be able to facilitate those loans and that debt.
In the fine arts, there is no guarantee of employment when you get out. And there's a statistic overall that I read, and I actually skipped over it. It was in my slides, in my notes. Only, I think the number is 27, only 27% of people out in the workforce are working in the field that they went to undergrad school for. So I think that, I'm not sure that that's a good concern unless money is like, if you need to really know that you're going to have a paycheck at the end, then go for a music therapy degree or a music ed degree or something where you know you can get a job. But if you want to be a performer, there's no guarantee in the arts, no matter what level of training you have. Not like
No,
other
absolutely
fields.
not. And that's the point I'm exactly making is that as a pianist and someone who has a collaborative arts degree, I have the ability to make money. But when you have a slew of vocalists who come out all competing for one job, you know, I had a roommate in college, Jamal Bakari, who was just recently cast in his first touring company of Once Upon This Island, and it was tooth and nail for him to try to get those degrees, and he's a phenomenal singer.
Right.
So going into mass amounts of debts, that's why I would say I think we need to push people more towards education degrees, because at least they could fall back on that rather than strictly performance degrees, which I think don't do a benefit.
Okay, well, I disagree with you, but we can agree to disagree.
Sure, absolutely.
You have to have a passion for teaching. Okay, we're going to go to Jennifer and then Alina, and then we have to end.
Hi there. I'd just like to piggyback something on there and maybe ask what you think about it, Michelle. Pertaining to a BFA in musical theater on the undergrad level, I personally fell through a crack. I have a BFA from the Boston Conservatory of Music and Musical Theater. And then later in life, after not being on tour and getting married and having babies, I said, oh man, okay, I'm living in Michigan now. There's not a lot of equity theaters around here. I have to spread out. I have to figure out how I'm going to make a living in my field. So I was trying to apply to pedagogy programs here in the area. Well, you need a music degree. Oh, well, I have a music degree. It's a musical theater degree. Oh, no, that's not a music degree. That's a theater degree. Okay, so maybe I'll get a master's in the theater. Okay, and I can maybe work as an adjunct professor. Maybe I
see
can.
where this is going.
Yeah. So
they
the
didn't
musical
want you either?
The musical theater degree wasn't a theater degree, it wasn't a music degree. Therefore, none of my credits from the Boston Conservatory applied. I'd have to start over. I'm like, well, okay, this isn't going to work. I have 3 kids under 5 years old. You know, there's not any. I can't do that. I can't start over.
There are MT musical theater master's degrees, master's programs.
Sure.
So you just got to look. And there are more coming online.
But my question regarding students is, I always say to my students, maybe you can find a way to double major. You're fabulous, and I hope you do become a Broadway star. But maybe there's a way to piggyback your BFA with something that's going to allow you 20 years from now to have a skill that's going to allow you to be hireable and still work in your field. Maybe it's coupling something with pedagogy, or, you know, I don't know what's available these days. But
I mean, I went back to school when I was late 40s. I think I was 51 or something when I got my degree. So because I wanted to, I sort of saw that although I had done a lot of performing and touring, and I wasn't going to be the next Broadway sensation. So I said, I think that I want to morph over into teaching, and I need a degree. I need a master's degree.
Sure.
They accepted a lot of my ancient college degrees, college credits, and which were music credits, and it was a music program. So that did dovetail well. But I want people to go where their heart lies, and because like I said, undergraduate is not probably where you're going to end up, so you might as well enjoy it. And there's no guarantees of employment in any field anymore. It's just not that kind of world anymore. Alina, and then we got to stop.
I just want to say that because I'm a post-bachelor advisor, and I'm a professor of music education. And first of all, I took a pretty significant pay cut becoming from public school music educator to professional music educator to become professor. So for some of people who are looking for that, it's not very, I mean, you can make it better, more money in being a music educator in public schools. Second thing, I would say that there are a lot of jobs. For example, in Wisconsin, all of our graduates get hired as a music teachers. And right now they even changing legislature because we have not enough teachers in the public schools. So if you're hard into teaching, you're guaranteed a job, at least in some states. I cannot guarantee, other states, but I know what's going on. So it's a good question to think about, but I also deal with a lot of students who are coming back to get licensure from vocal degrees and stuff. And that's it's a question, because you have to go credit by credit, and it's I mean,
I get it.
yeah, yes, exactly. So I'm,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I'm just giving my 5 cents, like.
I don't want to encourage people to get a music ed degree as something to fall back on if they have no passion for teaching.
Agree.
You
Totally.
know, then we're sending crappy teachers into our
Yeah,
public schools.
yes, no.
So, no. All right, guys, thank you so much for your attention. All this stuff will be up on the Google Classroom shortly, and it's a lot of fodder, a lot of things to think about. Thanks. Bye-bye.